5 decades ago, Americans watched in awe right on our TV sets as astronauts were heading into space. It was a huge accomplishment for the U.S. and NASA.
Morning anchor Sarah Wall explains the Gulf Coast was a big part in making all of it happen.
50 years ago, America made history, landing the first astronauts on the moon. They were a part of the Apollo program on a mission that came together quickly with a direct route through the Gulf Coast.
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the earth.
And with that speech from President John F. Kennedy, the race for the moon was on.
Listen, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
A mission that put the Gulf Coast front and center for NASA.
We copy you down, Eagle.
And the world.
Stennis played a key role.
Stennis Space Center on the Mississippi Gulf Coast is NASA's test site for rocket engines. This is where the rockets that launched the Apollo astronauts into space were tested. This is the B stand. This facility right here is what was used in the 1960s to test the rockets for the Apollo missions. Construction started at Stennis in 1963, and by 1966, they were testing rocket engines.
We were critical in making that happen because at the time, you know, the Soviets, we were in a little bit of a race with the Soviets at the time, or the Russians, and you know, they didn't have quite the same kind of testing program we did.
Testing programs and facilities developed by scientists and researchers using much different tools than what we have now.
They were doing a lot of the stuff with slide rules, you know, calculating these complex orbit trajectories and stuff like that. They were doing that stuff by hand. And that's just unbelievable to think about.
It is also a source of great pride for all those involved at the projects at Stennis, both now and back then.
Every single astronaut, male, female, whatever, that's gone into space has ridden on rockets that have been tested here at Stennis Space Center.
And that continues as engine tests are happening right now at Stennis for NASA's newest mission, Artemis, a return to the moon. When the moon mission was announced back in 1961, NASA began its search for a rocket testing site. Stennis was one of a number of areas being considered at the time, but its large landmass, roads, and canal systems are ultimately why it was chosen. The large rocket engines and core stages are moved around still today on barges using that canal system.